Hello, everyone. We are here, actually recording on time for once.
With our squeaky chair.
Yeah, you love to hear it. I need to get some WD-40 or something for this thing. Let's see, what was I going to say? We are here with reviews to get through. We only have a few, but I think we got some decent content out of them.
Nice.
So,
Okay, this first one, I am too old to understand the young people lingo. What does ICL mean?
I'm going to have to look it up.
Maybe it's a Brit thing. I don't know.
Might be. I'll have... ICL.
Well, Atomical says ICL.
I can't lie.
I can't lie. Okay. I can't lie. I was mostly confused, so I'll probably have to read backwards. But this was very nice. Good to see Kurai finally got his shit together. You and me both, friend.
I don't know how reading it back. I mean, how are you talking about reading it like word by word backwards, or like
No,
reading it scene by scene backwards?
I think she means like going back and reading over it later to lend context to what's happening.
Okay.
Because she got lost.
Okay. Gotcha.
Hey, she's allowed.
She's allowed.
She's got like school.
Yeah, this
stuff.
chapter. Yeah. This story's coming up on 100 chapters here, so.
Yep. I do that when I'm especially when I'm listening to something, because I listen to my audio readings every day.
Uh-huh.
Some days I'm paying attention. Other days I finish the chapter and I'm like, I have no idea what that was about. I didn't hear a word. I listened to the whole thing, but I didn't hear a word. All right. Anyway, thank you, Atomical.
Thank you for your review.
Joe Clone. Ooh, I loved it. The action was so fast-paced and palpable. Kai returns in full force.
Yes.
Akurui's story was painful to go through. I'm with Mina on this. Poor kid.
Yeah. I remember this. I can't remember. Like, I don't remember if we discussed this before or not. But like, what was your thought process when I like explained like how the whole thing with the Yakuza went down?
I was surprised. And I don't know. I'm trying to remember.
Was it like one of those things where it's like that makes way too much sense, or like it just like came out of left field for you?
For me, I mean, even though you told me before you wrote it, it still came out of left field because I forgot.
Fair enough.
Sorry, I'm a horrible wife. But yeah, no, I mean, I kind of agree with these guys. I was like, oh, poor guy. Ouch. Okay, yeah. Well, this makes I mean, yeah, it kind of makes sense because, like, yeah, he's this really...
It was really difficult to figure out the timing for that revelation because, like, I almost feel like I might have left it too long before I revealed it because, like, it's not one of... How do I put this? Like, you don't want to give all your reasons for why a character is the way that they are right off the bat.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's going to read an exposition where it's like, here's the info dump on the character, now we go. So, at least... To me, that's not very interesting. Yeah. Like it's like I'm reading a biography summary, and then I'm trying to get into a story. Yeah. That just like it's a change of pace that just throws me.
So I think the reason I forgot was because you told me so early on, and then when you actually read it to me, I was like, oh yeah, I remember he said he was going to do this. But I think what happened was you went so long that I thought, oh, maybe he just scratched that idea, and I didn't like commit it to long-term memory because I was just like, oh, he's just not doing that, actually. Because sometimes you'll run ideas by me, and then you decide not to go with them. And I think that's what I thought with this one.
Don't I usually tell you when I'm not going to do them, though? Or do I just let them fall by the wayside?
It depends on the idea.
Okay.
And I think with this story, at least, I get a little bit sidetracked and distracted because I genuinely, depending on the chapter, get the canon and this mixed up because... I don't know. But no, I think that's probably why I forgot. That being said, I don't remember what I was going to say. So, sorry.
That's all good. No, like I was saying, like it was really difficult to find like where was a good place to put it in.
That's right.
Yeah, because like, so I think that there's something to be said for like revealing a person's rationale like after they've done something, but you don't you don't want to do it. It's very difficult to find a balance between like how and when do I reveal their reasoning for doing certain things without it coming off as an info dump.
So for me, we were making fun of the swing in Naruto, right?
Yeah.
Because, there'll be a moment and there's this crucial decision that has to be made. And all of a sudden, in the midst of the battle, we're back to that swing. And it's, yes, it can get annoying, but it's a tool because it's like, okay, reset your brain. We're going to think back to when these guys are kids. And all of a sudden, here's this...
These formative moments from Naruto.
Here's this scene with him and Shikamaru that we've never seen before that informs more about who he and Shikamaru and Choji are, right?
Yeah.
Or, you get super, super far into the show before you ever realize, oh, wait, they really did have, like, a lot more interactions than Naruto just being the class clown.
Yeah.
Like, they're human. They were, and it's written because they were human beings who experienced different things.
Yeah, like, I think it was confirmed, like, Shikamaru and Choji's families were the only ones who didn't tell their kids that Naruto was a monster and they should stay away from him.
But there's lots of little tidbits of stories from his childhood where if you had just gone through his childhood chronologically, it would have been really boring.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
Yeah.
And so it like every once in a while you shoot back to the swing because that just gives you a context for when is this happening, right?
Where's the mindset?
Yeah, exactly. And then you get, random little, because there's all kinds of random little scenes and Hinata is his little tiny cute stalker, but but there's all these.
I wouldn't go so far as to call her a stalker because stalkers follow their target around relentlessly.
No, she just happens to come across him periodically.
Yeah.
Anyway, but there's lots of little nuggets and little like moments where you see them together as children and you see them experience things together as children, and it just lends a lot more context to who both people are, right? And so I don't mind little flashbacks like this, and if they're done tastefully, because it really can build to that nostalgia and that love for the character and who they are.
I'm gonna take it a step further and actually say that it doesn't just tell you like who they are to one another. It tells you who they are to one another in the context of the story, because this is Naruto's story. And so those flashbacks provide context to like not just who they are to him, but who they are, like what their role is in the story and how it's grown or changed or detracted in even some cases. But yeah.
Anyway, that being said, back to Joe Clone's review. Hawks getting caught off from the info was definitely a funny bit that I hope will continue until All Might spills, or whoever is willing to spill. Now, I hope next chapter will be even better. Not just because of the action scenes, but I hope we get a flashback to Kurai's conversation with the one space for all.
Okay.
Keep writing, Mataris.
Let's see. This next chapter does have some action in it.
Yeah.
As to its quality, I'll let you guys decide. Whether you like it better or not. I certainly have my own thoughts on it. Like, not to say that it's bad by any means. I don't think that I did a bad job with it, but I'll explain more about it like after I've done the reading.
All right. Well, thank you, Joe Clone. Appreciate you being so encouraging.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All righty, silly Kita. The action delivers. Yeah. I honestly cannot remember if an opening chapter to a sequel / new phase has ever gotten me this hyped before.
Whoa.
Oh, that's kind. Just the new artwork alone promised a good time. You did a great job with recreating the opening feel that the movie had, but with a significant shift at the very early on. Instead of heroes racing across the world to prevent any further bombs from going off, we actually got to see a hero who was capable and finally willing to save everyone that he could in the moment of the attack. It was a small change, but it really did alter the mood of being totally foreboding to giving me something of an uplifting feeling. Yay! Seriously, though, that opening sequence with Kai's return was everything that I could have hoped for. Tension immediately rising, not just because of the gas bomb, but because of the way that Kai conducts himself when facing the other hospital patients in the Humarise. The heroes wanting to go in and rescue people, but being unable to do anything other than watch. Finally seeing Kai be the hero that his homeland needs him to be again. Also, Star Killer Smash. Our guardian hero been back 10 minutes and is showcasing how much of a nerd he is. I love it.
Yeah, anybody who's played The Force Unleashed will know exactly how I came up with that Star Killer move. I think I'm gonna have to, I don't know if I've shown you the clip where I got the inspiration for that, but I'll have to if I have, I'll definitely have to show you afterwards.
After rereading the chapter through and understanding that it's the Kai from the future who is acting in that moment, it really adds a whole new layer to the first half of the chapter for me. I mean, this is a version of Kurai who has been able to do nothing for 10 years other than repel whoever Shigaraki tried to force him and the other vestiges into, never being able to tangibly affect the world he wants to save. That had to be really hard for him. And the other vestiges by proxy, but they're not the main focus of this chapter. But now he has a chance to finally act, and boy, does he.
Yup.
It was truly thrilling to finally see Kai in action as the guardian hero once again, after all this time of him being resolved to leave heroism behind.
Real quick, like, I'm glad that this is the reaction that's at least one person got, because, like, this whole time we have seen, like, not in flashbacks, not in anything have we seen a bit where Kurai is a hero. Not even the like after he died, like the closest thing we got was like a flashback of him fighting the Nomu in Fukuoka. But that was something we had already seen before.
Yeah.
Like I on purpose delivered nothing new in terms of his brands of heroism or the things that he did to help people, because I wanted to separate this version of Kurai, this like hollowed out version. I wanted that to become as separate from his hero identity as possible, so that when he made his return, it would be to its fullest effect.
Okay. Nice. It was truly thrilling to finally see Kai in action as the guard. Oh, wait, I already read this. Did I stop in this one?
Yeah, you stopped at the end of that sentence.
Okay. After all this time of him being resolved to leave heroism behind. I never really bought that he would be able to do it once you brought him back to life, but it was gratifying to witness it all the same.
Okay.
As I've said before, I genuinely enjoy Kurai as a character and the story that you've built around him. So allow me to say thank you for bringing back one of my favorite heroes in a manner that is honestly so well deserving.
You're welcome.
I honestly think that having Kai's vestige being the one who has saved everybody made his return way more impactful than if it had just been the, quote, present Kai trying to save his own neck. Not that I imagine him being that selfish. I truly cannot imagine how great it must have felt for Kai's vestige to be able to confront a villain and simply declare that he was ready once again to stand his ground. I know the circumstance in which it happened was pretty horrible, but there had to be some level of catharsis for him in that.
You are not wrong. like it was. Again, this is a really for more reasons than one. This was this was a great and fun chapter for me to write, but it's really difficult in terms of balancing certain things, because I couldn't have him coming across as this this entirely happy person.
Yeah.
Because then he would have just come across as an absolute psychopath.
Yeah.
But he's very he's you can tell that he's restraining himself in certain scenarios, but he there was definitely a level of catharsis to it for him. Just that satisfaction of he's had this power for so long, but he hasn't been in a position to use it. Now he finally does. Now he can finally do what he's been wanting to do since he was a kid.
Yeah. The realization of what was happening from that point of view from the other students was funny to me, solely because of how Kurai kept trying to get someone to clue him in. And they were
Hawks kept trying to get someone to clue him in.
Sorry, now you know how I feel when you're reading Harry Potter and getting everyone's names mixed up. Sorry, solely because of how Hawks kept trying to get someone to clue him in, and they were all more or less ignoring him. It's got to be very weird experience for the guy who's used to carrying around some of the country's most dangerous secrets to be kept in the dark for once.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
So, something I was gonna say, and then I lost it, but now I've got it again. Is that we have to remember that the vestige of Kurai is significantly different from the Kurai that we've been interacting with up to this point, in that he carries a very different kind of bitterness. He carries a bitterness that comes from being helpless, whereas the Kurai from this present time, he carries the bitterness of resentment, because he resents that he was brought back to life. The vestige resents that he's been unable to do anything to help anybody for all this time.
Yeah.
So they start out the same way, but at this point, they're Like, they're still the same person, more or less, but it's gonna be an interesting experiment going forward to seeing how they differ from one another.
All right.
Because of that, difference, and technically the vestige of Kurai is 10 years older than present.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of that time is pretty negative memories.
Mm-hmm. And I think remembering that it's the vestige who's taking over at this point really is important, because I think the first time you read it through, I was like, "What?
Yeah.
Where is this coming from?"
It's like, wait a minute, he's using that quirk a little too well.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm considering the fact that he the one time he used it, he was dying and kind of throwing everything he had into his own quirk with it.
Exactly.
So he's throwing around one for all lightning blasts. He's using float. He's using he's probably slinging around with black whip. Is like, no, wait a minute. Deku had to train really hard to use those.
I think, and
How is this happening?
I wouldn't be surprised if that's why Atomical is a little confused, because I was confused the first time. I was like, what? And it wasn't until the second time through around that I was like, oh, this is not him.
It's not him. Yeah, it wasn't the one that we're familiar with who's in control.
This is basically future Kurai.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So, side note regarding Kurai's first appearance to his friends in this chapter. When you said that all of the students screamed in surprise, did that include Tokoyami? Because I would dearly love to know what a yelp of surprise from that guy sounds like. His voice just does not lend itself to that kind of action in my head.
Honestly,
I imagine it as a surprised chicken sound. Exactly. I'm sorry, that's horrible. Or otherwise an angry raven screeching.
I don't.
I'm sorry. That's the first thing that came to my mind when I read that.
Honestly, I don't know. I'll have to find the voice actor who does Tokoyami, and then maybe if I recognize any of the shows that he's been in, I'll have to go through with moments from his character and see if they scream at any point.
Yeah.
Because if I can find that, then I'll refer you to it. But off the top of my head, nah, I can't think of that either.
Nice. And I don't even know who his voice actor is, so I wouldn't even know where to start.
I don't remember who his voice actor is off the top of my head.
We'll have to dig on that one.
Yeah.
Anyway. Once again, understanding that the first half of this chapter features the 10th vestige of One for All being in control of Kai's body really added a new layer for me when I went back and read the part where he sees his friends again.
Okay, yeah, so kind of like what you were.
If I'm not mistaken, this version of Kurai would not have seen his friends since the day he died, right?
That's correct.
That's so crazy for me to think about the fact that he hasn't seen these people in a decade, and his time is cut short with them because present-day Kurai wanted to, quite understandably, get back in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, how are you going to handle the two versions of the same mind in one body? Will they stay distinct from one another and tag in depending on the situation, or will they just merge into one being after a while, kind of like Nail, Kami, and Piccolo from Dragon Ball Z? Should be interesting to see either way.
For now, they will remain as two distinct entities. Going forward, who knows? I'll leave you guys to wonder about that for a while. But you've seen Dragon Ball Z Abridged, and they keep them a separate entity, which is a running joke, and it works really well.
Yeah.
Do not tell him I'm here. Nail, I can sense you. Do not make eye contact. So we got that in Dragon Ball Z Abridged, so they stay separate. But in the original Dragon Ball Z, as I understand it, this was made more pronounced, in the actual show. But when Piccolo fused with Kami in particular, he didn't just acquire his abilities and his power level. His personality also merged. So he kind of chilled out a little more.
See, the way I see it is, future Kurai only took control because he absolutely had to. Everyone was going to die if he did not. And even before that, Kurai was not going to get his head out of his butt unless he did something. Hold on. You keep interrupting.
Sorry.
Thank you. Sorry. Can you tell I've been teaching kids who interrupt me all day?
Yeah, I can.
Sorry. It's been a long day, my love. You don't even know. I'll have to tell you. Anyway, the way I see it is, at this point, he's going to return to being like one of the vestiges, right? So the vestiges are there in the quirk. They help train, they give guidance, but they're not there to run the show, right? They can prevent you from doing certain things, and they can protect you in certain situations, but for the most part, they're going to be like, he's going to be a typical vestige as part of One for All.
Yeah. It won't be quite to the same degree going forward, because like this is a very unique situation, like even for them, because like Kurai is alive, but its own vestige still exists within the quirk. So yeah, it makes it
like, and we also talked about though how he's a completely different person than he was now.
More or less, yeah. Like like we've seen One for All control the body of its host. But that's only for very brief moments. This is very different. Like I don't think we've seen them like take full control of the body. To me, this way it made sense.
No,
that
the only thing that ever happened was like when, well, I mean, it wasn't even them too, because when Deku broke his finger, that was him. Like he got a little help. His exact words were, "I was the one who summoned One for All, but it wasn't me who moved my fingers just now." So they have interfered in certain situations. So yeah, but I mean that's the thing. I do not, because it's an aspect of its quirk and not his person, which we've come to find are two separate things, just like your mind and your spirit, and you know that sort of thing, or like your body's physical abilities are not one and the same with your mind, because you can lose control of your physical abilities, but your mind is still there, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the way I see it. Is he's a part of the quirk. And he literally only did what he did because of the unique situation they're in, where he's the same person, kind of, right? Yeah. And so I don't see it happening moving forward, other than him just guiding him and teaching him how to use the quirk.
Okay.
Which, I mean, is interesting in and of itself, learning how to do something from your future self,
Yeah. I mean, hey, Deku got real excited about it. He was I get to learn super moves from my future self. Let's see.
All right. Sorry. I'm trying to remember where I'm at. Way up there. Sorry, you scrolled.
It's all good.
Now that I've got all my fandom vented concerning Kai's return and how well you handled that, allow me to now gush, oh my goodness, about my and everyone's favorite sassy boy. This chapter was clearly meant to mark Kurai's return in the face of new peril, and it did. What I did not expect, and yet I am always delighted to see, is some of Akurui's some Akurui-centric content. Mina is so great, especially in your version of her character, but something about the way these two interact with each other will always stand out as something special to me. It doesn't happen as much when they're arguing with each other, but whenever they're on the same page, this pair gives some really genuine sibling vibes.
I'm glad that you're... writing Mina and Akurui is like its own brand of fun.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, and like I love it too, because like I'm nothing like Mina. You guys know this.
Yeah.
But for me, it's fun because I have so many just like adopted brothers. Because I've always been the girl who hangs out with the boys.
Yep.
Judge me all you will. But, I mean, I have your brothers. I have, a lot of my friends growing up. And I've just kind of inherited a lot of brothers over the years. And so Mina inheriting her future brother-in-law and just having that relationship with him is just fantastic, because I get it,
It's like, hey, want to break the school rules? Yeah. Want to see me do it again? Awesome.
Oh, man. All right. I kind of get the feeling that Akurui was testing Mina when he said that he was going to retrieve Kurai alone, but maybe I'm just reading too much into it. Well, you said that. You said that in the last...
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
He was testing her.
He was testing her, yeah.
Yeah. So you're right, buddy. If he had been testing her, I think that he probably would have rubbed it in her face for not realizing that he'd been doing right. Or maybe he'd actually grown to care about her enough to know when not to push in certain scenarios. I think you're right on the money, buddy.
Yeah, he'll make fun of her for it later.
But we're in a serious moment.
Yeah.
So, yes, he was testing her. Because, he loves his brother. And he genuinely wants to see, like, where is this girl? Because we don't know what we're walking into. We don't know if he's in his right mind or if he ever will be again. Is she going to stick with him, right? Okay. So, Akurui basically doing a hyper-intelligent version of just nodding and agreeing with what the adults is saying during the lecture and then doing whatever he wanted to do in the first place was freaking ace. The second he and Mina leave the school, he tells her what he's planning to do. Throw the heroes off their scent is way too funny. In his knowledge bank, is his knowledge bank a little busted for the purposes of the story? Maybe not so much.
Maybe, but not so much so that I dislike it. What?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't know if you wanted to respond to that.
No, I was. You were skipping half the words.
Okay, maybe you should take over because dyslexia is taking over at this point.
I mean, like, what is it? So some of the people on Discord have started calling him the Akurui ex machina because he just magics up whatever solution they need.
Basically.
Like, other than the, how do I put this? Like, other than the magic collar, we'll call it, to fix Kurai's quirk, which, ended up almost costing him his own life. Most of the technological contributions that he's done so far have been fairly minor. Like, okay, he did the arm too.
Yeah.
But that could have happened with or without him eventually. Mm-hmm. I would say like I could have used somebody else for the purposes of the story, but I wanted it to be him because I wanted it to be special. Mm-hmm. But most of the time, his super thought has been used largely for comedic effects and doing small bits that they just it was they could have figured out a different way to do it, but it's easier to do it this way. Mm. So for me, it's it's largely for comedic effect whenever I throw in his technological advancements. Let's see.
Sorry, the pug is snoring so loud it's distracting me.
Taco.
Go away, Taco. Go lay down. Go.
You snore so loud when you're awake. I don't understand.
Is she awake?
Yeah, she's awake. She always snores louder when she's awake. You know that, right?
That animal. I love her so much. She's just so weird. Okay.
Let's see.
Sorry.
No worries.
Continue.
His reveal concerning the blood oath took the smile off my face, though. It really does explain a lot about him and Kurai by extension. You established fairly early on that the two of them had their reasons for acting the way that they do. But it hadn't been made absolutely clear until just now. I would say that, I don't know, I think I had given them enough other reasons to act the way that they did, or at least Kurai. I've given enough reasons for him to act the way that he did without adding this as context, but I can see how you could feel that way about Akurui.
Yeah.
Because he's unusual, he's just, even with the hyper-intelligence, he's just unusually savage and deadpan about a lot of stuff that normally a 12-year-old wouldn't be.
Yeah.
So.
Because he's been through it.
Let's see. This is a whole different kind of trauma that you've shown happening. This is a whole different kind of trauma than what you've been showing happening to them in the story thus far, but they've both been physically broken and mentally tortured to the brink of insanity, no less. But even with Kurai's quirk almost killing him as a child, there's just something about what happened to them in that cave that stands out as extra horrifying to me. How do I put this? It's I think the way that one of the reasons that this one would stand out more than the others is because with his quirk, you could make the argument either way. This it wasn't his fault. I'm well, if he hadn't given control over to his emotions, he wouldn't have ended up hurting himself so bad. So I would say that the blame somewhat lies with him on that one. But this is one of those things where it's literally they did nothing wrong here. Mm-hmm. It's and their dad didn't do anything wrong, but these guys have a grudge against their dad and the police in general, and they ended up being the victims for it. And I think there's something extra to the thought of they were either going to be used as bargaining chips or probably killed in a not great way if things didn't go the mafia's way.
Yeah.
So I think they for all intents and purposes, these thugs are picking on helpless children. Mm-hmm. They didn't know that they had quirks that could put them in their place. But the intent behind it, I think, is what really stands out as creepy and what's really unsettling in this scenario.
Definitely.
Let's see. It was a great touch concerning their past and motives, but man, if that wasn't chilling to read. Especially when you revealed who it was who killed the thugs they tangled with. I'm definitely going to need to go back and reread the parts of the story where Kurai tangled with with any Yakuza members now that I have this context.
Yep.
Yeah, like, I think I remember some people saying something about how, like, Kurai was kind of acting unhinged in the Yakuza raid.
Yep.
Go back and read that again with this in mind, and I dare you to say that again. Let's see. Side note again, Shuken's quirk sounds awesome. Kind of makes me wonder why he didn't aim to become a hero. If you wouldn't mind elaborating on that in the podcast, I really appreciate it. If not, don't worry about it. It's your show and all that. No, I don't mind elaborating on that a bit. Just because somebody has a great quirk suited for heroism doesn't mean that that's like what their personality inclines them toward. Like certainly Shuken wants to see the heroes win and all that, but you got to remember that he grew up without a dad essentially.
Yeah.
And he's an only child, so I think I don't know if he's realized it himself.
Which Deku did too.
Well, Deku's dad is still alive. He just works overseas. But yeah, essentially he grew up without his dad being around. But there's a difference between that and your dad just dead.
Yeah.
But so for Shuken, I don't think he's realized it yet, in a conscious sense. Or maybe I just haven't thought about it enough, but he doesn't want to kind of leave, it's more or less this thought of not wanting to leave his mom alone. That probably would be the final nail in the coffin for keeping him away from that.
I definitely see that.
Because again, he supports heroes. He wants to see his cousin succeed at being a hero. He's excited for him. He's yeah, good guys go and all that. He has a great quirk, but being a hero just doesn't suit him.
Also, I think something that's important to keep in mind is becoming a hero is in this world is just short of becoming an astronaut or a pilot in our world. Every little child says, I want to go to space, I want to be an astronaut.
Not quite that. No,
it's not.
12,
I know.
12 people have walked on the moon.
Yeah, but a lot of people have been astronauts and a lot of people are pilots, right? There's a lot of little boys and little girls who say, I want to be an astronaut, or I want to go to space, or I want to be a doctor. And how many of them who say that actually do it, right? It's an elite profession, and not everybody's actually going to decide to pursue it because it's hard.
Yeah.
And maybe they have other interests as they grow up.
I'll clarify this. If Shuken had wanted to go to Class 1A with Kurai, he absolutely could have. He 100% would have made a great student at UA.
Yeah, but he chose not to.
But he chose not. He's chosen to do something else.
Yeah.
That's just how his personality is. I would say becoming here is more like becoming a pilot in terms of ratio, because there's a lot of hero agencies in Japan at this point.
That's why I said astronaut or pilot.
Okay.
Right? If you want to be top 10, you shoot astronaut.
Okay.
If you want to be pilot, because it's every child who plays a sport at some point, whether they admit it or not, dreams of going to the Olympics, right?
I never did.
Okay, whatever. You're just weird, okay?
I was maybe, I'll play this game.
I'm whatever. Maybe I just have an ego. But, and at some point they realize, oh wait, I'm not that good.
Yeah.
I'm good, but not that good,
Yeah.
And so it's just, I don't know, it's an elite profession. And there's so many things that can discount you, besides, where you are at in your headspace.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question. Mina really showing how much practice she's had with helping Hikari boys in this chapter. I can't stop going on about how much I love the way she handles her interactions with Akudori, and in this scenario in particular. She doesn't talk to him the same way that she does Kurai whenever he's been having issues, as they obviously have different relationships, but I can still see the similarities in how she speaks and tries to support Akudori through something that clearly, and justifiably, troubles him. Yeah, it's the way that I, the way that I talk to. Yeah, my
You okay there?
Yeah. I'm just having a stroke over here.
You're good.
No, not allowed anymore.
Yeah, no more of those.
No more of those, please. I've certainly helped you work through some stuff, and the same can be said for our sister-in-law. But like, obviously, I don't talk to you the same way that I do her.
Yeah. Well, and you also have to remember, Mina grew up with brothers.
Yeah.
So it's natural.
This is true.
You know?
This is true. Yeah. Yeah. It's a tricky interaction anytime that they, like, I'm glad that people are enjoying it as they are, because it really is in some ways it's easy because of the byplay that can go on between them, but like for more serious moments like this one, it's really difficult for me because I didn't grow up with sisters. So I don't have a very good reference for like how.
And I feel like you as a person, even if you did grow up with a sister, you would not be the same as most boys with sisters.
In what regard?
You, as a teenager, already had this extreme conservative view. Not like in a misogynistic way, but in a must protect, must shelter, right? And so like with girls in general, anytime, like I remember spending time with you, anytime there was someone upset in our friend group or someone upset at church, you would just immediately go into like big brother dad mode. Like I remember, yeah, seriously, you would automatically get hardcore protective and like so I have a feeling, because like I feel like most brothers kind of, you know, they have, it's like Mina's brothers where they're like, oh yeah, it's a sister, you know, they have that typical sibling noisy, you know, siblings that annoy each other, but like, they also have
extreme things happen. They're both like, oh crap, we need to help her.
But they also have like that, you know, they have the healthy fear because it's like, oh no, she can hold her own, she's fine. But you know, they also, you know, they have the sibling stuff. So I feel like in my experience, I could be totally wrong with this, most brothers, especially in our culture now, don't have that hardcore, like, protective brother thing. Because now I feel like most of the quote-unquote protective brothers that I've encountered, it's more of a joke. They're not actually, they're like, oh no, she can handle herself, she's fine, right? I don't think...
You should be ready to go into protective mode, though, I think.
Yeah, but knowing, like, that's in a case of emergency.
Yeah.
Knowing you...
I'm not saying do it all the time, I'm just like, you should be ready to do it.
But I feel like when you were at this age, you would have been, like, hella annoying your younger sibling, because...
Probably.
You would have been, like, hardcore. Who are you talking to? Who is that? What is his name? What does he do? You know, you'd be giving her the 20 questions and she'd be so irritated with you because you would be that older brother. I'm telling you.
You're probably not wrong. Like, I don't know. Like obviously I can't see outside of my own head.
Because I could see your brothers. I could see your brothers being the typical like, oh yeah, sibling, you know, she can handle herself, she's fine. But when it comes down to it, obviously we'll protect her. But you know, she's annoying, she's fine, right? You'd be the one who's like hardcore. Yeah. That's just because I know you. And I've seen you with our daughter. Holy cow.
What did I do?
I remember when a little boy cussed at her on the playground. And I remember when a little boy...
I was about to throw hands on a 5-year-old.
Oh yeah, you were done. You were not okay. Yeah, so I'm like... And you're like very reserved compared to the way you were when you were a teenager. Yeah. So I can only imagine. Thank you, Lord, for only giving Joseph brothers. I'm gonna just leave it at that.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, that was a long tangent.
I see how it is.
That was a long tangent, but I'm not wrong.
I mean, this
Am I wrong?
No, you're probably not wrong. Why you gotta call me out like that?
Hey, you got like that with me too. Like when we started dating, you got like that with me. And I know it's different when you're dating someone, but even so, that's just your nature.
I thought I was pretty chill about letting you hang out with other dudes.
No, you weren't jealous, not in the least. You were not jealous or insecure.
I was like, I'm perfectly secure.
Oh yeah, no, you were perfectly secure. You never got jealous, but you were very protective.
Okay.
So like, if you saw someone treating me unkindly or unfairly, you would get your hackled up real fast.
Is that not how it's supposed to go?
I mean, yeah, but...
All right, back to the review.
Sorry. That was a long tangent.
I had fun with it. Let's see. Akadori choosing to confront his fear and go meet his brother at his location of request was a display of courage that is often seen in literature, but oftentimes the fear factor is overhyped, or even in the moment of the character pushing past the trauma itself. It cheapens the moment and sentiment for me, and to be honest, I kind of found myself cringing when I realized that such a moment was upon us. Thank you for delivering a scene where the character grits his teeth, skips the dramatics almost entirely, and just goes to do what needs to be done without any big, dramatic internal monologuing. There's a brief show of support from Mina, yes, but it's a practical one, and not something that can be easily accompanied by overly sad music. In my experience, someone facing trauma upon realizing there is no way out of it simply wants to get it over with and not draw it out any more than it already has been. You showcased that very well here. Thank you. Yeah, like... Honestly, I don't know how to... I don't know. I've certainly done my best to delay confronting moments of trauma in my past, which, not saying that you should do that, not saying that's what I should have done. But, like, I don't know. I just had this thing of, like, digging my heels in. Like, trying to fight the process the whole way, which obviously wasn't good for me.
Yeah, you're bad about that.
Yeah. And, a lot of this is an exercise in trying to create characters who differ from me. So when I thought about how I would face that moment, I was like, okay, I need to take a sharp left away from that and figure out a different way to approach this that's in line with this character.
Yeah.
This was the result.
Nice.
Awkwardly just kind of taking a moment on the beach there and being like, all right, let's go. And just going for it. Like, that was not what I would have done. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. Let's see. Are we going to get to see Weiss in a World Heroes Alliance get up? That would be really cool to see your take on how that would look. I'm also looking forward to seeing how her involvement on the opening raid affects the dynamic of the Freshman Hero Course's Big Three. Maybe I'll get around to a sketch of that at some point, but it's not gonna happen anytime soon.
See, I'm over here thinking, oh man, guess he has a new project for tomorrow. But you have like a list of drawings that you want to do. So
I'm doing a commission for some coworkers right now,
nice.
So I'm like, so everything else takes a back seat for that right now. Let's see. To round off this chapter, I thank you for cementing it in our minds beyond the shadow of any doubt that Kai, the guardian hero, has returned in force for good. I know you love your cliffhangers, and you could have easily made one here, but you didn't. Thank you for being kind enough to grant us, or at least me, this peace of mind with regards to this dynamic of the story going forward. A brilliant chapter done here, and an absolute banger of an opening for this new phase. I shall see you in the reviews for the next chapter. Happy writing, Mataris. Thank you for saying so. Yeah, like...
Man, you guys are so kind today.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a popular chapter.
Yeah. I'm glad. Like I had fun writing this chapter. I'm glad that people reciprocated on that. What was I going to say? Like, yeah, in regards to the cliffhanger bit, I thought about ending it on the scene where where Mina and Akaduri are like getting ready to head into the cave, and just leaving leaving the opening for leaving their encounter with him as the opening in the next chapter. No, the pacing didn't feel right.
I was literally about to say that wouldn't have been the right pacing. Nice. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I don't end on not cliffhangers all that often, but I'm glad you guys enjoyed this one.
All righty. Well, that being said, let's move into the chapter.
All right. We'll see you guys in a bit.
I've been wandering in my mind lately. I've been looking for a place to rest my head, for the road that lies ahead. Always fighting for the ones beside me. You could try it, but her heart's so far from dead. You will believe it. I look at fear in the eye, yes, we met before. Stirring every lie, someone's at the door. You keep walking the line, I stuck to the floor. Nothing wrong in my mind, I've always wanted more. I've been walking on coals high for my whole life. Gotten better to bruise just to get it right. Climbing every hilltop through pain and strife. But when my summit is reached, I'll be out of sight. I see the writing, and I'll keep holding on, holding on. Building the life that I've been dreaming. Holding on, carrying my heart to the end. And now I'll see who was wrong, who was wrong. Will I reach the heights I'm scaling? I'll rise above, sowing the fire within.
inherited will. When Akudori finally managed to get Mina off his brother, he was quick to say, "Alright, Kurai, explanations now. Why'd you take off like you did? What have you been doing in this cave for the better part of a day and night?" Turning to the pink girl, he added, "I will ask that you wait to deprive my brother of the ability to breathe until after we had said explanations and are not in a cave full of my worst nightmares." "No promises," she answered as she kept a tight hold on Kurai's arm, who was looking just a little dazed from the lack of air and rush of oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin that his brain had just been flooded with. "He's mine. He's not allowed to go anywhere without me, ever again." "What if you two have different missions, that kid? Did I stutter?" "Ugh." Akudori groaned as he sat against the cave wall. "You two are nauseating." "I would like to take a moment and say that I had very little control over what just happened," Kurai mumbled, still appearing somewhat cross-eyed. "Take that moment to start giving me some answers," his brother grunted. "What happened back in Kanto? I assume your future vestige took over, but that's about all I've been able to surmise." "The gas that was released not only forces someone's quirk to activate, it enhances the stuff to a degree that a body is not meant to handle, which leads to most people being killed by the stuff," Kurai replied, his eyes beginning to sharpen as he remembered the horrific sights from the morning. Mina thought it an interesting mark of their dynamic that Kurai didn't bother to wonder how Akudori knew about the vestige situation. He just knew, and that was good enough for the hero. "The only reason I'm alive is the same as every other patient in Itamori. We were all on quirk suppressants. That stuff's strong, and it seems like it worked well enough to keep our powers from just exploding, though I get the feeling that would have changed if we kept breathing in the gas. Even on the off chance that we survived exposure, there were Humarise members waiting outside the hospital with guns. They were under orders to kill anyone who came out who had a quirk." "That's sick." Akudori growled, his eyes becoming harder as he took the new information in. "The whole thing was sick," Kurai replied, a similar look coming into his eyes until Mina nuzzled his cheek with her hair. "I'm okay," he assured her as he leaned into the gentle touch. "No more spastic one-for-all episodes, I promise." "And how do we know that you're good for that?" Akudori asked flatly. "Don't get me wrong, it's good to see you acting like yourself again, but how do we know this isn't just a temporary relapse?" "Like I said earlier, my vestige and I came to an understanding once he and the others revealed a rather important detail about One for All to me," his brother answered as he looked him in the eye. "Apparently, it's not a good thing to get your hands on this quirk if you already possess another power, as evidenced by my untimely demise on Nabu." "I thought you died because of suffocation and other injuries," Mina said with a puzzled frown. "That's what the coroner told us." "That was certainly a factor, but it wasn't the straw to break the camel's back, as it were," he said with a shake of his head. "I know All Might theorized that Energon and One for All joined in my body would have done some serious damage to my insides, but he underestimated the severity of that factor. Every cell in my body basically aged to death in minutes, destroying any chance I had of recovering from serious injuries like the one I had already suffered. It's happened before, though it admittedly took a lot longer the first time around." "Wait, you're saying that another one of the past users was killed by One for All?" Mina asked, still looking confused. "The fourth user, Hikage," Akudori said, sitting up a little straighter as he did. "It was him, right? Everyone else who possessed One for All died fairly young, except for him. I think he was like 40 or something when he passed away. I take it you figured that out after reading about the past users?" Kurai asked his brother. "More or less," the other boy responded. "From what we could tell, he had the power for something close to 20 years before he handed it off to Lariat. All Might said that he was one of the few who didn't seem to have died in battle, which seemed kind of weird for a user of the quirk. He knew there was too big a gap in power between him and All for One," Kurai explained. "He decided to train in seclusion so that he could improve the power as much as possible before he would hand it off to the next guy. The plan mostly worked, but as time went on, he started to notice something strange about his body. He was aging really fast, and his skin literally started to crack in places, leaving him with these weird, dark scars." "He aged to death," Mina finished for him, her eyes going wide again. "Is that going to happen to you again?" "No," Kurai answered, giving both her and his brother a vast measure of relief. "But it does bring me back to why I can't pass off One for All to someone else. If I did, they would only suffer the same fate as Hikage and me. Someone like Todoroki probably wouldn't die as fast as I did, but given how powerful the quirk has become now, I doubt he'd last long enough to master it and defeat All for One and Shigaraki. But since you no longer have another quirk, One for All won't damage your body like it did before," Akudori mused. "There's also the fact that your body was already toughened up by over a decade of enduring and adapting to Energon, so you don't seem to have any trouble using One for All at full power. Well, I think I fractured, or at least bruised, a fair number of the bones in my arms and legs, so, nothing's broken so that I need casts," Kurai said with a shrug. "Don't get me wrong, first chance I get, I'm taking as much ibuprofen as is safe for human consumption. But
Yeah, according to the vestiges, I'm more than ready to take this quirk into battle against just about anyone. Wait a sec, Mina said as the thought occurred to her. You said that anyone already has a quirk shouldn't wield one for all anymore, right? Yeah. What's going to happen to Eri? She asked him worriedly. She's had the power for a while now. Is she going to start aging super fast too? Eri will be fine, he swiftly assured her. She's lucky she has the power to reverse things back before they were damaged, including her own body. Her original quirk can undo the harm that normally possessing one for all would inflict on her. He paused before he admitted, the vestiges didn't exactly take that into account when they accepted her as a vessel. Mostly just seemed as though she was their last chance to be able to defeat Shigaraki in the future. Lucky us, huh? That's a word for it. Akudori sighed as he drummed his fingers on his knee. Seriously, though, are you sure about taking up the fight again? If One For All needs a quirkless host with a strong body, I'm sure Togato would take it on if we explained the whole situation to him. I'm sure. Kurai sighed in response. It's not my first choice, but I am resolved to finish this fight. Besides, I think it's better that Lemillion succeeds with permeation rather than One For All. His quirk was a huge part of what made him who he is, and I don't see a reason to change that. Okay, just one question left then. That being, why? Oh, why am I sitting in a puddle, in the dark, in the one place on Earth I would nuke if I'd had Energon when you could have told us all of this in literally any hotel room? Akudori demanded furiously. Or even better, my room back at UA. They could be bugged. Not with me around, they wouldn't be. Fine, there's two reasons, Kurai deadpanned. One, it was not my conscious decision to come here. Blame future me. Second, the vestiges and I needed a place to talk, off the radar with zero chances of being disrupted, so that we would be able to come to an understanding with each other. If I was sitting back at UA, there's no way I'd get 5 minutes to myself so I could talk to them, especially once word gets out that I'm alive again. I'd have to be dealing with them and everyone else at the same time. I don't think that would have ended well for anybody. Akudori went to argue, then reconsidered before muttering, Fine. But if you invoke this oath again, for any reason, within the next 5 years, I am lighting your mattress on fire while you're sleeping on it. Stop acting grumpy and come give your brother a hug. Mina laughed as she beckoned to the younger boy. You know you're glad to see him. Gee, I would, but there appears to be an oversized gum wad attached to his everywhere right now. I'm not getting in the middle of that. He replied. Mina and Kurai both chuckled at that before the older boy stood up with his girlfriend and moved toward his brother, who also got to his feet. The elder brother then pulled his sibling in for a rough embrace as he said, Thank you, Akudori, for coming out here and looking for things while I've been away. I'm sorry I left you with so many problems to face on your own. Akudori scoffed past a lump in his throat. Joke's on you. I hardly did anything, and now they're your problems again. After a moment, his facade broke down, leading him to return the hug as he said, It's good to have you back, dumbass. Good to be back, smartass. Get ready, we're about to hit the drop zone. I already heard him on the radio, icy hot. Could you two please maintain some semblance of professionalism while we're on a mission, especially with the Coalition? Myrtanaster leveled her best scolding glare at the two boys who had been arguing, while Deku pulled the hood of his new stealth suit over his brow and stood up with a grim look about his mouth. Freezerburn merely shrugged at the reprimand, while Ground Zero muttered something under his breath and affected to look away from the pale girl. The four of them were riding along with a number of Endeavor's sidekicks in a plane that would drop them above Humarise's Japanese HQ. With the organization's chemical attack on the Kanto ward, the World Hero Alliance had assembled and declared them an international terrorist group. Now they had heroes in every nation racing across the globe to find all the bases that belonged to the fascist idealists and arrest their leaders. It has to be said that it was something of a novel experience to see the regal heroine dressed in all black, the exact opposite of her normal color scheme. It made her look even paler than normal, and her eyes in particular stood out from beneath the cowl on the costume of like blue-white pearls that could freeze one's soul if they peered too closely. Get ready, newbies! Vernon grinned at the students, bringing them all to attention. We're coming in hot! Even as she said it, explosions began to echo outside the walls of the plane, causing the pressure in their ears to spike every few seconds and setting their teeth on edge as a result. Who knew they'd have anti-air weaponry? Deku shouted to be overheard one particularly close explosion. These are pretty old-school defenses. Well, most of their members don't have quirks, so they don't have many options. Freezerburn called, even as an alarm began to blare throughout the transport. Here we go! Vernon shouted as the rear hatch began to open, admitting the chilling night air of the lower atmosphere into the cargo space. Go, go, go! Without any further prompting, the young heroes launched themselves out of the plane and allowed gravity to do its work, pulling them at high speed toward the ground. Each of them took in the scene below them, noticing that all the white robes running about like agitated ants, and the brief flickers of fire that preceded the explosions that boomed in the sky above them. After about 2 seconds of falling, Deku tapped his earpiece and asked, Mirtanaster, do you have a clear line of sight on those cannons? Affirmative. Then let's do it. Aiming his right hand as he fell, Deku wheeled a large ball of energy to gather in his palm, like a small green star that was falling to the earth amid the fire and exploding metal. Deku-Naster combo! Northern Lights! His classmate yelled in tandem with the appearance of a jade hex about halfway between them and the ground. Deku hurled the energy blast at it, striking the conjuration dead center, which made it glow brightly before it spat out a dozen thin lasers on the side, facing the ground, each one arcing in a different direction to slam into one of the cannons that was trying to take them out. The result was a series of explosions that lit up the base below them like the flashing lights on a Christmas tree display. Good work, Deku and Mirtanaster, they heard Endeavor say in their earpieces. Everyone else press the attack before they start to form ranks. What's he praising them for? Bakugo snarled as he flipped in midair so that his feet were now falling in front of the rest of his body. Anyone could have done that. Let's see you do one better. Mirtanaster shot back as a series of white hexes began to appear along her projected trajectory. Ha! Just watch me, Ice Queen. I'm going to blast twice as many of these flunkies than the rest of you put together. Most of these people don't have quirks, Bakugo. Freezer Burn admonished his comrade. We can't go all out without the risk of hurting them. Shut up! I know that! Ground Zero raged as he began to unleash a series of explosions that slowed his descent speed considerably. Likewise, Mirtanaster and Deku began to hop from one glyph to the next in order to change their momentum enough that they wouldn't be flattened as paste on the ground. Freezer Burn also worked to alter his speed as he unleashed a torrent of fire at the ground, forcing many Humarise members to scatter for fear of being burned alive. The quartet hit the ground, rolled, and then sprang right back into action. Ice, fire, nitro blasts, and lasers all flew out from their group, incapacitating Humarise members by the dozens as they tried to understand how the heroes had gotten the jump on them so quickly. The Zealots were mounting a fierce, if strangely uncoordinated, defense, but the UA students had trained against and experienced far worse over the course of their freshman year. They easily broke through the first wave of defenders without any casualties, allowing them to access the main building that served as this branch's base of operations. Once inside, they were met with more resistance, but again, they seemed to lack any sort of real plan for defending their base. It was at this point that Mirtanaster voiced the thought that had been running through all their minds for a few minutes. Anyone else feel like this is too easy? She asked as she hamstringed a man who had been about to shoot at Ground Zero from behind a pillar. 71. They're a bunch of quirkless idiots! The explosive hero shouted as he kneed one acolyte in the face while roasting another pair with his power. Seriously, how dumb do you have to be to pick on an entire world full of people with an evolutionary advantage over you? 78! If anyone thought it was inappropriate that two high schoolers seemed to be keeping an actual score for however many villains they took down, they said nothing at the time. The followers may be fools, but the intel we received on Fleckturn indicates that he's a very persuasive, intelligent man. Freezer Burn answered over the comm channel, as he and Deku pushed ahead with a few other sidekicks. This may be a trap. It doesn't matter, Deku replied as they heard him fire off a laser blast that bowled over a group of gunmen. If we fail to capture their leader now, we'll have given up the element of surprise for no reason. Even if it is a trap, we have to do our best to apprehend him. Don't worry about it, Deku. Ground Zero smirked as he slammed an elbow into another acolyte's head, knocking them senseless to the floor. Once you and Icy Hot both botch it, I'll come in and finish the job the right way. Show you losers how it's done. 81. The interns and sidekicks should have all sworn they heard a deep growl coming in through the channel following that remark, but they were too busy wondering about it at the time. They were too busy to bother wondering about it at the time. So, you've got control over how many quirks now? Mina asked as her feet touched on the sands of the beach, Kurai's arm having kept her up as he had levitated over the rocks and the slippery bluffs that ran alongside the shoreline. Well, Black Whip and Float have been easy enough to access, he answered as he stepped down next to her. Haven't had a chance to try Smokescreen, but Danger Sense made my head feel like it was going to split open in Kanto until I had gotten the gas out of the city. With a slight frown, he added, It's one of those ones that I have no control over whether it's on or not, so hopefully it doesn't go off for every little thing. It's going to start going off in about 5 seconds if you don't put me down, Akudori grumbled sourly. He was currently being held aloft by one of Kurai's Black Whip tendrils, and looking none too pleased about the fact. You were the one who said no to the piggyback, his brother pointed out. True, but I also don't feel like explaining why you look like a hentai villain if someone happens to... What? His snarky comment was cut off when Kurai promptly dropped him in the sand without warning, giving him a face full of the stuff. He scrambled to his hands and knees before he spat the grains out as vigorously as he could and coughing out, Worth it! Nice to see that things are back to normal. Mina giggled as she leaned on Kurai's right shoulder, enjoying the warm feeling of his natural arm in her hands, as whole as nature had intended his body to be. I did miss the ability to whack him without feeling guilty about it. Her boyfriend grinned as he watched his brother dust himself off. You never felt guilty about it. Akadori spat, still trying to get the grains of sand out of his mouth. Ugh, I think some of it got stuck in my teeth. Sounds like a personal problem, Mina said as she turned toward the town, pulling Kurai along with her. Let's get back to the hotel. My outfit's all wet, there's salt in my hair, I want a shower. Some dry clothes would be nice, Kurai agreed. He frowned as he looked down and muttered, I don't have any of those, do I? Unlike his brother and girlfriend, he had not had the opportunity to pack a day bag with necessities like clothing for his excursion to the beachfront village. I'll buy you some in the morning, Akadori said as he moved to walk alongside the pair. Until then, use a bathrobe or something, I don't know. Do whatever your girlfriend tells you to do. Excuse me? I said I got 2 hotel rooms, he deadpanned. I got one for me with a big-ass bathtub, and I ain't sharing. You two do whatever you want in the other one as long as I don't hear anything through the walls. Once again, the younger boy found himself face down in the sand, courtesy of a hearty shove from his sibling. I swear he gets more annoying with every trip I take him on, Kurai muttered with flaming cheeks. Akadori let them get a little ways ahead of him this time before he reached into his belt and pulled out an earpiece that he quickly fastened in place before using his phone to dial a familiar number. He only waited a few seconds before he had Nezu in his ear, exclaiming, Where are you, Hikari? Not important, he answered bluntly. What is important is that we found Kurai, he's safe, in his right mind, and we're bringing him home in the morning. You sent the heroes I called on a wild goose chase halfway across Japan, the little animal all but shouted, obviously still upset that he had been duped. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this has been? Frankly, you should be embarrassed on the grounds that you tried to outmaneuver me, Akadori deadpanned. I said no tailing us, and you ignored my demand. Therefore, I feel absolutely no guilt for tricking you. It was a safety measure for your sake, Nezu protested. What if something had gone wrong? What if your brother was beyond reason? Well, he's not, and even if he was, we already established the fact that we don't know any heroes who could contain him, Akadori said as he continued to use the same dry tone. I knew how to handle the situation, and if you couldn't trust my judgment on this, what the hell were you thinking hiring me to help with the school's defenses that are supposed to protect everyone under your watch? I thought you might listen to a logical approach when I had reason to exercise caution, Nezu sighed heavily. Well, I guess ignoring logic when it really counts as a family trait then, Akadori shrugged. In any case, we'll be back tomorrow by early afternoon at the latest. Let Kurai have a chance to rest and recover from today's ordeal before we put him back in the thick of it. He says he's ready to get back in the fight, but I'm thinking he could do with a nap in a place that isn't full of crazy people. Tell me where you are so I can send a security detail, Nezu tried to plead, but Akadori was already shaking his head in the negative. You do that and you'll just attract attention, even if the heroes are being discreet, he stated. Our best move is to keep his anonymity going for as long as we can. No one has connected Kai to the mysterious hero who appeared in Kanto today, and the two of us grew up knowing how to keep a low profile in public, and that was without the benefit of near total body alteration. Nobody recognizes him because he doesn't look like Kai. You boys really are too stubborn for your own good, Nezu grumbled. There will be repercussions for this, Hikari. Apparently, he had come to accept that if Akadori didn't want to tell him where they were, there was currently nothing he could do to change that very frustrating fact. At what point did you think I cared about the consequences? Akadori chuckled. Kurai is safe and healthy. That's all I can ask for. If those conditions have been met, I don't care what happens to me. Cut my pay, restrict my privileges, take away my toys. I really do not care. I'm doing my job and looking out for what's left of my family. There was silence on Nezu's end for a few moments before the little animal said, We will discuss your punishment upon your return. In the meantime, do not allow anything to happen to your brother. We cannot afford to lose him again, and he's been through more than enough. You think I don't know that? Akadori snorted. And what the hell do you think I've been doing all day? Risking your brother's safety and the future of the world because of your arrogance. That was rhetorical. By the time he had caught up to his brother and Mina, they were already in the hotel. Having known they would probably prefer some time to themselves, he decided to make a stop at a 24-hour convenience store for some food and a change of clothes for Kurai. The night air was cold enough to keep him awake, despite the fact that they were closer to the dawn hours in the middle of the night. Even so, he was still tired enough that he nearly forgot to retract his sonic disruptor glove back into the compact bracelet before going inside. He waved a greeting to the cashier, who looked about as tired as he felt before he grabbed a basket and went further into the store. Moving as quickly as his tired feet would allow him, Akadori proceeded to grab a first aid kit, whatever looked like it would make a quick breakfast, and some of Kurai's favorite snacks and orange sodas. I'd say Mom would kill us if she knew we were going to drink soda first thing in the morning, but I think that threat only works to scare one of us now, he thought with a tired chuckle as he finished grabbing a bottled iced coffee for Mina. He paid at the register, then set off for the hotel, looking forward to a warm bed and a change of clothes himself. He sent Mina a text message to let her know he would be stopping by to drop off the clothes that he had acquired for his brother. He was a little surprised when she replied almost instantly with the words, "Text me when you get to the door." He fell asleep as soon as we got in. Really? He thought with a bemused grin. I go to the trouble of getting us separate rooms. He just crashes as soon as they get there. The thought that she might be lying about their current activities did occur, but he quickly put the thought aside. His future sister-in-law was crafty whenever pranks were involved, but she never lied where Kurai was concerned. He did have a longer day than we did, he admitted silently as he found himself in front of the door before sending Mina the notification that she had requested. He waited a few seconds before he heard the latch coming undone and the door swung open to admit Mina, dressed in casual clothes and her head wrapped up in a towel as she stepped aside to give him free entry. "Come in," she whispered when he hesitated. Nodding quietly, he moved inside, a smile breaking out on his face when he saw that Kurai was indeed sleeping heavily on one of the beds. The exhausted boy hadn't even bothered to get out of his wet clothes. He really had been tired enough to just pass out as soon as his body recognized a chance for a deep rest that would allow him to recover from the hellish events he'd been subjected to. His injuries had been easy enough to conceal from the half-asleep receptionist when they made their way into the hotel lobby, but they would still need to be treated, even if with a limited first aid kit. He should have a shower and change, Akadori sighed as he turned back to Mina. He'll get sick if he sleeps in cold clothes on a wet bed like that. He then gave vent to a short chuckle before saying, "Guess this is karma for every time he mocked me for wetting the bed. How long has he been able to hold that over on you?" "About 3 years. Oh, wow, I am more tired than I thought," he mumbled as he rubbed his eyes. When he heard Mina giggling, he gave vent to a short growl and moved to flick Kurai on the head, saying, "Wake up, brother. Your girlfriend's forcing me to provide comedy material about my own childhood instead of yours, and it's not a good look for me." To his surprise, Kurai merely let out a short grunt before continuing to snore softly. "Well, it's official. He's dead again." "Pfft," Mina snorted as she pushed him aside. "Amateur. Watch a pro at work." Seeing her crouching slightly by Kurai's side of the bed, Akuri then said, "Might I remind you that it's probably a bad idea to surprise attack someone in their sleep who could knock All Might into next week?" "I know what I'm about, Aki," she said with a sly grin as she held up a small bottle of what looked like hand soap. "Check it." Moving quickly, she uncapped the bottle, set the tip over Kurai's head, and squeezed a large dollop of the green substance into his ear. The result occurred a lot more quickly than Akadori would have expected, with Kurai stirring as he tried to swat at the space above his head, then sitting up and scratching at his ear as he grumbled, "The what?" His eyes cracked open as he peered at his fingers before he muttered, "Classic." "Come on, sweetie," Mina said as she pulled on his arm, trying to get him to stand. "We need to get you washed off and into the new clothes that your brother got for you. Some bandages on those cut and bruises probably wouldn't hurt either." "I'm already washed up," Kurai mumbled as he tried to fall back on the bed, only to have Akadori flick him on the ear. "Ow! Would kill you to just let me get a few minutes of sleep." "No, but if I take you back to UA with even a hint of the sniffles, I'll never hear the end of it from your principal," his brother answered. "Come on. Mina will help you get washed off and bandaged. Then you can sleep." "I will?" the pink girl inquired. "By myself? Wait, what will you be doing?" "Taking a bath and then a nap," he replied as he moved toward the door, having managed to get Kurai on his feet, albeit a little unsteadily. "I told Nezu we'd be back by early afternoon tomorrow, but he also kind of pissed me off, so I'm not bothering to set an alarm for a reasonable hour. I'm sleeping in." "I heard that," Kurai mumbled as he tried to sink back into the wet mattress, only to have Mina flick his other ear while Akadori made his exit. "Ow! Stop that!" "We've been had," Ground Zero snarled as he and the other intern heroes stood outside of the base's main office, where Fleckturn was supposed to be hiding out. They had just heard over the radio that Endeavor's team had been unable to locate the IDEO trigger bomb that was also supposed to be on the premises. The fact that they had managed to capture all the Humarise members in the base did little to assuage the solemn mood that had fallen on all of them. "The higher-ups must have planned for us to come here after the attack on Kanto," Freezer Burn muttered. "What I don't understand is that if this was supposed to be a trap, why didn't they have a better setup?" "What do you mean?" Deku asked him. "Usually when villains want to lure people into an ambush, they have some kind of plan to make sure that we don't make it out in one piece," he told him. "But this whole base was completely disorganized and underprepared for an attack, even if they managed to employ anti-aircraft weaponry against us," Mir Ternaster added. "Even so, they could have employed trigger against us, right? From what we've seen, there were no major leaders from within the organization present either. It feels like these people were left as fodder for us to find. I think that makes it safe to say that we weren't the real targets of tonight's trap. Then what was the real objective? Freezerburn murmured. Probably letting their boss get away while we were busy with his flunkies, Ground Zero growled. We know he was here yesterday from surveillance photos. He probably let us know where he was on purpose so we'd come looking for him as soon as the Alliance got its crap together. This was all just a smokescreen, Deku muttered. But if that was the only point of all this and he let himself be seen, why would he also let it be known that he has another bomb here that we couldn't find? Maybe it's a double bluff and he made his escape so we could hide the bomb somewhere in Japan, or maybe he went away so that even if we caught him, he could still have it set off by one of his operatives. Does anyone want to stop him? Mirtanaster asked in an aside to the other boys. Good luck trying, Ground Zero huffed. After practically being manhandled by his girlfriend through the course of a brief shower, Kurai finally found himself in a set of warm, dry clothes that admittedly felt a lot better than the soaked shirt and jeans that he had taken from a mannequin that had been left on the street in the aftermath of Humarise's attack. He still lacked any socks or shoes, but that could be dealt with once he'd gotten at least 6 hours of sleep. Once Mina had finished binding the parts of his body that were more than likely inflicted with stress fractures, as well as covering his open wounds with bandages, Kurai found himself standing in front of the bed that he had gotten wet with seawater, swaying back and forth with exhaustion as he realized that he might be better off sleeping on the floor with a spare blanket. When his roommate saw him grabbing the extra sleeping gear from the closet, she tilted her head and asked him, "What are you doing?" "Bed's wet, so I'm for the floor," he mumbled as he pulled the pillow under his arm. "You could have the one that I didn't mess up." Mina blinked a couple of times before she inquired, "Why would you need to take the floor, though? You're not going to join me?" Kurai raised his head to look directly at her through bleary, unfocused eyes as if he were not sure he had heard her correctly. "I wasn't sure that I would be allowed," he finally admitted. "I figured you might be ready to reestablish the at-arm's length boundary now that the moment of emotional highs is over and things are settling down." He swayed again. For a split second, Mina was worried that he would collapse, but then he shook himself awake so that he could tell her, "You said that when I felt ready to reopen our normal interactions, you'd be willing to talk about it, and I didn't want to push any buttons that I had no business even going near. After everything you've gone through for me, I didn't want you to think that I was trying to take advantage of the situation." He started to rock back and forth in a precarious manner yet again, so Mina rolled her eyes and gave him a light sideways shove that ended with him falling on the dry bed with a slight grunt. Grabbing the blanket that he had dropped and hopping so that she landed on her stomach next to him while looking at his now bewildered face, she smiled gently and asked, "You sorry for what you did when you came back?" "Yes," he mumbled. "Very. For all the things I did and what I put you through in particular." "Do you promise not to do it again?" "I promise." "Do you promise to love me and let me share in your burdens from now on, one for all or not?" "I promise." "Then enjoy your stay as my personal heater." She laughed happily as she pulled the large blanket over them before snuggling close and resting her brow against his. BT Dubs were never sleeping in separate rooms again. When she waited for a few seconds with no reply, she cracked an eye open to see that he was already fast asleep, which was quickly evidenced by the light snores coming from his mouth. Rolling her eyes again, Mina reached over and shut off the light before turning back and whispering, "Good night, Kurai. I love you so much." It wound up being the best sleep that the two of them had gotten since their days on Naboo Island. The three exhausted teenagers didn't wake up until nearly 11 in the morning the next day, which was a first for the two boys, barring their hospital visits following life-threatening injuries. Mina and Kurai were actually the first to get up, but they just ended up sitting next to each other and talking so that he could get caught up on the little things he had missed at UA while he had been hospitalized. Now that he was somewhat rested and the last of the adrenaline had worked its way out of his system, he was definitely feeling the full extent of the pain from his injuries. But he did his best to keep his complaints to a minimum, not wanting to ruin the peace that had finally settled upon him and his girlfriend. The pink girl was actually in the middle of telling him how all the gamers in their class had been single-handedly defeated in a Smash Bros. Match by Ruby and Yang's uncle, and when they heard a knock at the door, it was followed by Akaduri saying, "I got Nezu on the line. He wants to talk to Kurai. Is now a bad time?" "I'll be right there," his brother answered as he tossed the blankets off his legs and made for the door, Mina giving vent to a slight pout as he did. Moving as quickly as his damaged bones would allow, Kurai undid the lock and opened the door to admit his brother, who held up his phone to show that it was on speaker. "We're all here," Akaduri said as he moved inside and shut the door behind him. Kurai noticed that he was also holding what looked like a portable radio, but decided to focus on what the principal had to say for the time being. "Hikario, you're all right?" Nezu asked, almost sounding frantic. I'm as healthy as I can be, considering everything that happened yesterday, and my head feels better than it has in a long time, sir, he answered readily. Did Akaduri inform you of what occurred between the vestiges and myself? Only that you came to an understanding, the little animal answered while heaving a sigh of relief. I take it there was more to it than a simple discussion? Yes, but I would prefer not to say anything else over the phone, Kurai replied. This is better discussed in person. If you're worried about the call being tapped or even remotely monitored, don't sweat it, Akaduri said as he held up a black device in his hand. No one's eavesdropping on this chat of ours. Well, then in that case, Kurai proceeded to inform the principal about everything he had learned concerning One for All, and the dangers involved of passing it on to someone who already possessed a quirk. My future vestige seized control of our body in order to take me to a place where there was no chances of us being interrupted by external forces. I am sorry that I've caused inconveniences with all this, but after my triumphant return in Kanto, as it were, there's no way I would have gotten a minute to myself to get things sorted out in my brain with the other vestiges. Now, though, we don't have to worry about my mind fragmenting itself or One for All going out of control. Bonus, turns out I can use my version of 100% with relatively minor damage done to my body. This gave Nezu pause for a moment, which eventually led to him asking, and how does your version of the quirk's full power scale in comparison to that of All Might? Well, even though it wasn't a proper merging and it was only for a few minutes, Energon did enhance One for All's strength considerably, Kurai answered him. When I was able to wield both quirks against 9, we're talking about me being able to use something like 100,000% of One for All on the fly. Because I separated them before they could completely merge, though, I'd say that Eri and I can use something around 120, maybe 130% of Izuku's version of the quirk, which is considerably above All Might's capabilities. You were 1,000 times stronger than All Might himself, Nezu asked. That can't be right. According to Midoriya, your powers were greatly enhanced, but nothing like what you're describing. Did you guys miss the part where we punched a Class 6 hurricane out of existence? Kurai deadpanned. Hurricanes only go up to Class 5. They get promoted to the 6th tier when a multi-quirked villain is the one creating it and firing about 4 of the types of attacks at me while I'm choking to death, Kurai said to cut off his brother with a flat glare, who then appeared somewhat conflicted. Fair point, he conceded. Continue. In any case, that number doesn't really matter anymore, the former cyborg said to his headmaster. Direct exposure to Energon boosted One for All's base strength permanently, even if only a fraction. That's why I was able to basically shred the gas into atoms with nothing but aerokinetic force above Kanto, something that even All Might wouldn't have been able to handle. It's also something the Paranormal Liberation Front will be unable to counter until they have Shigaraki at the helm, Nezu mused aloud. If nothing else, this will have ensured that our time to prepare for the coming war, given that we can all survive the efforts of Humarise, that is. Has the World Heroes Alliance assembled in Hong Kong yet? Akaduri now asked, looking grim as he did. They have, Nezu answered him. They officially began operations yesterday afternoon. Then what's my move? Kurai asked before his brother could voice a new thought. Akaduri told me that Mr. Aizawa was planning to have me released from the hospital, but somehow I don't think anyone will be looking too hard into the disappearance of someone who technically didn't exist to begin with, especially given the scope of the damage and casualties in Kanto. I could probably return to UA without much trouble, but whether I do or not in a public lighting is probably another matter. Actually, regarding that, Nezu paused to gather his thoughts before he said, Aizawa and I believe it would be best to keep your resurrection a continued secret for the time being. We were originally planning to have you return here incognito, and have you stay in hiding until the war with Shigaraki's forces. But given what you've told me regarding One for All, I believe that it may be in our best interest to put you to work undercover in another country while we attempt to track down the whereabouts of Fleck Turn. The leader of Humarise, Akaduri said when his brother looked a question at him. Do we have any leads on his hiding hole, or are you just planning on picking a random country on the globe with a blindfold on? Mina asked dryly. How do you know where Kurai would be able to make a difference in this crazy fight? I could make the argument that he might be a decisive factor in any battle that he may end up taking part in, but I do have a specific region in mind, the principal answered. I asked Eri if she knew anything about where Humarise's true base of operations could be, and initially she had said that she had no idea. However, she did mention that in her future, the Paranormal Liberation Front defeated their leaders fairly quickly and acquired their bases for their own use, which helped spread their influence and power structure across the world. I had her draw up a map of all the bases she could remember, and while a good number of them overlapped with locations that we know Humarise operates out of, there was one base that we have absolutely no knowledge of. When I asked her if she was certain, she told me this was the base where Midoriya met his end in the future. Wait, why would he have left Japan? Kurai asked with a frown. I thought him and everyone else in the UA Alliance were committed to driving the front from their place of origin. Apparently some sellouts lured him and a few of our other friends into a trap under the pretense of needing aid, and promising the same if they helped their cause, Mina said with evident disgust. It was some big shot heroes from Europe asking, and for the most part, heroes were still fighting the good fight at that point, so no one suspected anything until it was too late. The base is on a peninsula barely within the borders of the small country called Otheon, though it does also border closely with the neighboring country of Clade, Nezu informed them. Incidentally, Endeavor's agency already seems to be in talks with some of the members of the World Hero Alliance to go to Otheon, where another Humarise base is known to be. On top, other agencies are planning to deploy around the world to assist countries that are overrun with crime even more than our own. He's not staying to help maintain security in Japan? Kurai asked disapprovingly. Apparently he and a few other agencies raided the known Humarise establishment last night while we were meeting up, Akadori said with a small shake of his head. Fleck Turn was supposed to be there, but now it seems more likely that he's hiding out in the secret HQ near Otheon. Heroes all over the globe have been attacking every Humarise base that they can find since last night, trying to find him and the bombs they're threatening to use, but nothing promising has turned up so far. Whatever the case, there are plenty of heroes and agencies to deal with finding the outliers of the stupid cult in our country. Meanwhile, smaller countries are in need of big hitters like Endeavor to handle this kind of global emergency. Him going overseas makes sense in this scenario. I guess I get it, Kurai murmured as he saw his brother's logic. But where do I fit in all this? Gran Torino has already taken Eri on as an intern in an official capacity, Nezu told him. We mostly asked him to do so in order for her to be able to keep up the necessary appearances of a hero course student while she actually spent her time studying the needed materials for being a hero here at UA. Now, though, we need someone capable of using One for All in the field, so he will be going to Clade with Eri. After we finish our discussion, I will be asking him if he would be open to accepting you as another intern, so that you would be able to join him and Eri in secret when the time comes. Knowing the old man, he'll complain about it, but I don't see him turning down the request given the circumstances, Kurai mused. Who are you calling old? All three teenagers' eyes bugged open as they stared at the screen while their ears registered the gravelly voice of All Might's mentor. Gran Torino? Kurai asked just to be sure. How long have you been... You're meeting me in Haneda Airport in 2 days, kid, the former teacher growled. I just got in a minute ago while you were talking about where our enemy's real base is. Once we finish this Humarise business, I'm going to have you working yourself to the bone, mastering One for All like a real pro. We'll see who's feeling old by the time I'm done with you. Kurai looked like he wanted to apologize, but then he paused, his face falling as he let out a small groan. It's not that funny, he grumbled. When Akadori and Mina gave him puzzled looks, he reluctantly explained, Miss Shimura's having a rather extensive laugh at my expense. Nana's there? Gran Torino asked, sounding startled. I know Nezu had mentioned that Eri had managed to establish contact with the past users at some point, but... Yeah, I can talk to them pretty much whenever I want, and the same is true in reverse, Kurai admitted. They mentioned that they passed on my situation to Eri, so I kinda assumed that she would tell Principal Nezu what happened. After another pause, he deadpanned, Oh, my vestige says that she wanted me to do the explaining so it wouldn't just seem like she was trying to cover for me. Why would... Nezu let out a heavy sigh before he said, We don't have time to worry about what might have been right now. Gee, where have I heard that recently? Akadori pretended to wander, leading Kurai to slap him on the back of the head. Ow! Stop doing that! No. Turning back to the phone, the elder brother then said, 2 days, Haneda Airport. I assume you and Eri will have my necessary gear and paperwork for me to leave the country when I get there. What should I do in the meantime? Stay wherever you are, Nezu ordered. Don't do anything that would attract attention to yourself, heroics or otherwise. As for your brother, I need him to return to UA post-haste. I've promised his efforts to the coalition of scientists who are working to create a countermeasure in the event that Humarise is able to detonate any more bioweapons. If you want me to get an early start, send me any data that you've got on the substance they used in the bomb, Akadori said as his eyes sharpened while his magnified intellect prepared to go to work. The substance is called Trigger, Gran Torino cut in. Heard of it? Yeah, Akadori answered with a slight wince. Nasty stuff, that. It's not very addictive, but it does crazy damage to your body after just 3 or 4 uses, especially if it's inhaled instead of injected into the bloodstream. There was a brief pause before the elderly hero asked, How do you know so much about that stuff, kid? There were rumors about a new drug matching Trigger's description shortly before I was paralyzed and my father was murdered, the boy answered. I kept an ear to the walls of the dark web and kept hearing about it here and there, though it seemed like the stuff was being monopolized by one group in particular. Must have been Humarise. You were doing what now? Kurai asked his brother with a small frown. I don't have to tell you everything, Akadori shrugged. I don't have to tell you anything. A statement that would sum up our working relationship. Nezu sighed again. I have just one question, Mina said before Akurui could get into it with the principal again. Where do I fit in with all this? I haven't gotten any word about what Mr. Musha's agency is going to be doing about Humarise. Your job is to get Hikari to the airport in 2 days and then return to UA, Nezu answered. Before any of them could protest, he preempted them by saying, It's not a matter of punishing any of you. If I could send Ashido to Clade with Hikari, I would. But I understand that she is a part of why he is not long since his mind entirely. But Yorai Musha's agency is on standby here in Japan for this emergency concerning Humarise. As a provisionally licensed hero, Miss Ashido cannot act on her own authority, especially in another country. Therefore, I cannot send her with Gran Torino without the express permission of her current mentor. That's actually not true, Akurui said, causing both of the other teenagers' heads to snap toward him. Excuse me? With the gathering of the World Hero Alliance, the planet is currently under the Apocalypse contingency, he told the principal. That means that a provisional license from any hero's homeland is as good in any country until the crisis is passed. Mina is free to act in the event of any emergency she comes across, no matter where she goes. There would be some extra paperwork involved in the event of an actual battle or emergency rescue that she takes part in, but she could go with them. She'd just technically be traveling as a student abroad, but it works. Does she already have the necessary paperwork to go to another country? Nezu inquired, surprising the three teenagers when he didn't try to argue the point. Yeah, I got it done when we went to Island, and the passport is still good, Mina answered readily. If Ari's going with them, she could bring my travel stuff to the airport. I'm not running a babysitting errand, kids, Gran Torino cut in. If you two want to go on a date, you may as well stay at home. We have hero work to do. There's no time for frolicking in the sunshine. The pink girl flushed angrily, but before she could utter a retort, Akurui injected to say, With all due respect, sir, you're underestimating Mina. She stood alongside Midoriya and my brother in a battle against All For One's knockoff and walked away with her life, which is more than we can say about Kurai. They're not strangers to holding a professional standard while working together. They'll hardly be sightseeing while working under you. His protest was touching to the young couple, even if Kurai looked a little miffed about his brother's choice in words. This is true, Nezu added, once again surprising the younger heroes. They worked well together to assist the takedown of a human smuggling ring during their first semester, and I received several positive reviews of their combined efforts from their class representatives during their time on Nabu. There was a brief silence on both ends of the line before Gran Torino asked, Are you going to vouch for this because you're afraid of what they'll do if we try to stop them, or because you really think it'll make that much of a difference whether she comes along or not? I choose to believe in my students, Nezu answered without hesitation. They may not make the best decision every time they set out, but that is what being young is all about, growing up from the mistakes that we make. In this instance, however, I rather think that this is the correct path to take. Why is that? A hero with something dear to protect is a formidable force to behold, the principal replied. If our enemy is truly as dangerous as we fear, we shall need the vessel of One for All at his finest to succeed. Eri is already firmly resolved to do what she must, but I see no reason to withhold Ashido's assistance in bringing out the hero that exists in Hikari back to the fore. There was another brief pause before Gran Torino sighed and grumbled, I'm not responsible for her safety if she comes to Clade. That said, I also won't keep her from riding next to us on the plane. Thank you, sir, Mina said with a sigh of relief. If we're all clear on our roles, then I'm going to get myself packed up to go, Akurui said as he brought the phone closer to himself. What time do my brother and Mina need to be at the airport on Thursday? I'm looking at some flights that'll take off in the late morning, Gran Torino answered. Okay, got it. Leave securing the tickets to me, the younger boy told them. I'll also get you a hotel for a week in Clade's capital. Consider it a thank you from me for looking after my brother while he's gone. Where do you get all the money for this stuff? Mina asked him. Don't worry about it, he replied quickly. When the others kept staring at him, he rolled his eyes and added, I didn't steal it if that's what you're worried about. Seriously, you think someone with my mental capabilities wouldn't find a way to make bank on the side? Come on. As long as nothing illegal was involved, Kurai grumbled. He didn't miss the slight shrugging motion that his brother gave him, but he decided there would be a better time to address the issue. For now, he said into the phone, Mina and I will be there on Thursday mid-morning. We'll see you there, Gran Torino replied gruffly. Don't get too busy playing house, you hear? Got it, Kurai and Mina said through gritted teeth while Akurui made a visible effort to contain his laughter. And Kai. Yes, sir? No more playing chicken when it comes to the life of a hero, Gran Torino warned him. You've got an entire world and the hopes of that past 9 generations of One for All to carry now. They don't have time to be waiting for you to make up your mind every time something comes along that disrupts your way of seeing things. If you're going to use this power, you damn well better use it for the right reasons. Don't worry, Kurai replied with a grim sort of smile. I may not have the same single-minded approach to being a hero as the ninth, but I still inherited his will, good and proper. For everyone who's gone before me, I will stand my ground as a hero worthy of one for all. About an hour later, Akurui checked out of the hotel, and his brother and Mina saw him off at the train station. Safe travels, both of you, he said after hugging Kurai. And we catch up with Fleck Turn, kick his ass. Can and will do, the elder sibling assured him with a grin. By the way, your birthday present is under my bed back at the dorms. Since I won't be around to give it to you in person in time, feel free to open it when you get back. Under your bed? Akurui said in a bewildered tone. That can't be right. I know you always check my room for my present every year, which is why I almost never hide it there. Kurai chuckled with a shake of his head. But I didn't say it was on the floor. I just said that it was under the bed. How can it not be on the floor if it's... Akurui paused in mid-sentence before he smacked his forehead and exclaimed, You stuck it in your box spring! Bingo. As Akurui began grumbling to himself, Kurai leaned over to say in Mina's ear, This is about the only event of the year where I consistently outsmart him. Nice. She giggled before she stepped forward and gave Akurui another hug. Thanks for getting me here, Aki, and for stepping up when it looked like I wouldn't be able to go with him. No problem, the boy said as he scratched the back of his head. You said it yourself. You'll have the same family name as us before too long, and you've got the spine to back up that claim. That's a good enough reason for me to look out for you like I do for this idiot. So saying, he jerked a thumb at Kurai, who simply rolled his eyes. At that moment, the platform announced its last call for the train heading out of town, which meant that their time was up. Giving Kurai a solid fist bump, Akurui then shouldered his pack and went on his way. See you guys soon, he called back. Try not to do anything too stupid. Got it, don't be like you, Kurai called after him, just in time for the younger boy to flip him the bird and duck inside the train. Shaking his head with another exasperated grin on his face, he turned to look at Mina, who was gazing at him with adoring eyes. Well, we seem to have this afternoon and all of tomorrow with just the two of us, he said as they intertwined their fingers. What should we do with it? Well, we've been ordered to keep our heads down in a sleepy little tourist trap of a town, she answered as she pulled on his arm to lead him away from the train, which was beginning to move. I say we do our best to blend in with the crowd. So, see the sights and grab all the local dishes we can try before we're back to work? Hey, I haven't been on a date in 2 months, Mina said, her grin widening as he allowed her to lead him whichever way she chose. You know how I am about charging interest when it comes to delayed quality time. That is a tab I am more than happy to settle, Kurai replied as he gave her fingers a slight squeeze. Mind if we head over to the east side of town? There's a hole-in-the-wall restaurant that makes the best fried fish you're ever going to find. Oh, that sounds awesome because I'm starving. Given that one of your more influential role models in the future seems to be in the habit of finding loopholes to exploit when I'm not looking, I have to wonder if your request doesn't come with an ulterior motive, Nezu said as he looked across his desk at Eri, who was waiting with a patient, docile look on her face. There's nothing for me to hide, sir, she answered quietly. My mission is to maximize our chances at avoiding the outcome of my future in any way that I can think of, big or small. What I aim to accomplish with this excursion easily falls under that category. Why him in particular, though? Nezu inquired. Surely there are other heroes who could benefit from the application of your power. By all accounts, he's exactly the kind of person who deserves to have a second chance, Eri replied quickly. Even when it seemed like he had nothing left to give, he found a way to keep saving people. There's also the fact that if Kai admires and respects him, I find it reason enough to offer my help. Do you not find it dangerous that your ideals are shaped so strongly by one individual? Nezu pointed out. You leave almost no room for another's influence in your mind. I want to be a hero, and Kai's actions embody heroism itself, she stated. Even more than All Might, his convictions led him to make the ultimate sacrifice so that others wouldn't have to. Can you really make the argument that I've chosen a poor role model? I could argue that you've chosen someone rather reckless to emulate, but I also cannot deny that his heart is in the right place. The little animal sighed. If that is what you wish to heed, then it would be foolish of me to deny you the opportunity. You may make your detour, so long as it does not delay your rendezvous with Hikari and Ashido. Thank you, sir. Eri allowed a delighted smile to crease her face as she added, I'm sure Ingenium and Kai will be very grateful for this once all is said and done, too.
Never took the backseat or wonder what's a dream without a goal to conquer. Just a painful reminder I've seen 4 miles how the river only bends and the two sides meet again. Put your head to bed, or you'll never see the end. Be the one they choose to follow. Would you run towards your
like I said, there was a little bit of action in this chapter. Like, I don't think at this point in the arc I could have really kept the hype train going, because like then it gets oversaturated with that kind of material very quickly.
But at the same time, we kind of needed some feel goodness after all of these heavy chapters. Yeah. So I hope that's good.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. And I'm not gonna lie, I genuinely spaced out when you were reading the action scene, so I don't even remember what the context was.
It was basically the opening scene of the movie, where they're all flying in the planes and they've got their black suits on and they're going to hit the.
Oh. Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. Got it.
Yeah. Weiss is with them, and her and Bakugo have a count going on as to who can take down more villains.
I love it.
I was like, what seems like while I was writing the scene, I was like, this is cool, but I need something to kind of like come out of left field that somehow still works for these guys. And I was like, Bakugo's super competitive. I'm like, and Weiss is too. She just tries to be a lot more low key about it. It's like she's assumed that she's like, I'm not competitive about it, and then absolutely is.
Yes.
So like him riling her up in this regard in particular was just really extra amusing to me.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Just like everybody's just like, okay, they're keeping account of how many people they've taken down. We're gonna move past that and do our jobs here.
Yeah.
I don't know what did any moments I know you glazed over that, but did any moments in particular stand out to you during this chapter?
Sorry, carry on. I apologize. Okay. I think, I'm still riding on that high from the last chapter into this one where we're following, best boy Akurui and just being an excellent third wheel. Even though he shouldn't be, but whatever. It's fine. But I'm sure it's nice to have the couple reunited, which is fun. But it's a nice little buffer, get a little happy couple vibes before we move into some more action serious stuff.
Yeah, it's I didn't want it to be all about me and Kurai are back in each other's lives, because Akurui's there. He's important. Mina's not just getting her boyfriend back, her fiance back. He's getting his brother back. Yeah. And I wanted that to be an important factor at play in the chapter.
And I feel like Akurui's behavior is more content than anything, because he's just been worried sick all this time, and the fact that
he's also kind of haven't been the one to keep things together.
And so, but it's nice though, because they're both able to actually rest and sleep in, which they never do.
They never do. Yeah. the only times that these guys sleep in is when they've been given sleep meds, essentially. And Kurai actually takes sleep medications very regularly, because he has all the nightmares that he has to deal with, so he has to have assistance with that. But I think I said it in the chapter, it's the only time that they sleep in is when they're in the hospital and they're recovering from life and death situations.
Yeah.
So him deliberately choosing to, he's nah, he's I said we were going in the afternoon tomorrow. Nah, I'm gonna go sleep. I don't even care anymore.
But they make it back and they're able to catch up with everybody, which is nice to have everyone together on good terms again. And
they haven't gotten back. They haven't.
No.
I don't know what chapter you were paying attention to, because we had we had Bakugo and the other team talking about how they were duped when.
I thought they caught everybody up on beating on when Crow beat everyone at Mario.
Mina was catching Kurai up on that. There was nobody else there.
See, I wasn't listening. Clearly, I don't even know what's happening. I shouldn't even be on the section right now because I do not know what was happening.
I thought you said the coffee was keeping you awake.
Apparently not. I don't think I can multitask very well. Sorry.
I guess not. Yeah, that was they.
See, I basically did the thing where the high school kid goes and reads 2 sentences from their assigned reading and completely misinterprets it and then looks like a dummy in front of everyone. That's basically what I did just now.
Well, then I'll talk about stuff that I had fun with. I had fun with, so because Weiss is in the Endeavor Agency, I wanted to lay out some stuff where it was like she's a part of this group. She's not just like an add-on. So like her and Deku have a combo that they do together. And they call it the Northern Lights, which I was like that seems kind of fun to me because like Kurai's quirk is derived from Starlight, so Deku nerd brain he would absolutely go into overdrive with names for that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Let's see, we kind of touch on how Kurai's got control of some of the other quirks, or at least how he's kind of getting a feel for them. Let's see. What else we got? We got Akurui being a little shit. It's always fun to watch. It was kind of fun to write some scenes where it was just Mina and Akurui going back and forth, because Akurui's like he shouldn't sleep. He's soaked wet. He's gonna get a cold, and he tries to wake him up, and he's just like, "Well, I don't know how to handle this." And Mina's just like, "Amateur, watch this." And Akurui's like, "Oh, okay, all right, I can use this." So yeah, more of that sibling energy that some of you guys were talking about. I really do enjoy getting to do that. Let's see what else we got. We got Nezu finally talking to Kurai, and Kurai's like, "All right, I'm okay, man." It's like I understand that you're worried, but I promise I'm okay. So originally the way that the conversation there was going to go was that they were just like originally it was going to be that they would tell Gran Torino about the arrangement later, but I was just like, what if Gran Torino was like already here and listening to half this conversation? Like that the whole scenario just got way funnier to me, and I was like I'm going to make use of this, and I like the way that it turned out. I
feel like the most far-fetched thing that happened was them getting their way.
That might have been stretched a little bit, but within the context, like I was trying to think of like how the legal processes worked of like letting these teenage heroes run around in other countries and do their thing, like without being interfered with from the police and all that. I'm like, okay, if the World Heroes Alliance is a thing, there have to be some kind of exceptions that are made for these kind of things that will allow these circumstances to occur. Yeah. So maybe I exploited that a little too cavalierly, but I like the way that it's going. I don't think it really. I don't think it's impossible that it could happen. Like, it's also kind of the notion that it's like, technically speaking, Kurai can do whatever he wants. Yeah. Like, who is going to stop him? Like, Deku and Eren, like I'm not saying it to the extreme of like now he's going to go on a crime spree kind of thing, but literally him, Eren, and Deku are so powerful that the only people who are capable of stopping them are like the top heroes. So for the most part, it's like, you know, with what resources is Nezu going to stop them from doing whatever they want to do?
So like in essence, we're in this hero world where, you know, it's a legitimate profession, but all of a sudden, because we have someone so overpowered, we're back in the situation of all the original superhero stories where you have this superpowered person and it's more trouble to get them under control than to just let them do their thing. And so, you know, it kind of reminds me of like, you know, with Superman when he's dealing with the government trying to like capture him or whatever. Yeah. It's like, should we be spending all of our resources trying to capture this person, or should we be focusing our energy on like fighting the bad guys and then worry about him later? You know, because we think he'll go rogue at some point. We're not sure, but we have bigger fish to fry right now. Yeah. Yeah. So. Yeah, there is a little bit of that. Like, you know, like you know, One for All is like, it's a broken quirk. Like in terms of like, legitimately, like when the user can wield it at full power, like I honestly really do hope that someday we get like a special episode or a movie where we get to see like All Might in his prime going against All for One in his prime. So freaking cool. That battle must have been something else. Like, yeah, like I honestly I kind of wonder of like, where did they fight that he was able to keep any of the news stations from finding out about it? Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm like, we saw what happened when he was like using a faded version of 100% of his power. Like it like destroyed
the majority of a city. Like, where in Japan were they fighting that no one noticed?
Yeah, that's a really good
Or, like,
point.
no one noticed fast enough to get over there and figure out what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Just
like,
registers a random earthquake, a magnitude 6 earthquake in the middle of nowhere.
magnitude 6 earthquake followed by a tornado, and then another, and then, you know, a volcano erupts, or what, like, just all the natural disasters you could think of happening in one spot. But
Oh, man.
yeah, no, like, One for All in its max power form is a broken quirk. Like, my job as a writer is to figure out how to put restraints on that, whether it's through the people or through their body being able to not able to handle it, as Horikoshi did with it.
Who they're squared up against.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's my job to keep tabs on all those factors and figure out, okay, how do I keep this power relevant and as a present player without just, like, wrecking the story entirely. But yeah, so we've got it so that it boils down to, like, if Kurai really wants to do something, there are not a lot of people that can stop him.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, the principal's just like, okay, if they're gonna do this thing, we might as well make sure that they're gonna do it in a way that we can kind of keep tabs on, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Is that dangerous? Probably, but they're kind of dealing with a lot right now.
Yeah.
So whether or not this will turn out to be a mistake, you'll have to wait and see later on in the story, but this is the decision that these characters are going with, and they'll have to face the consequences of the results of those decisions later on.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
And, you know, also Nezu literally has to deal with teenagers who have superpowers.
Yeah.
I'm sure this isn't his first rodeo.
Yeah.
With rebellious superhumans.
I think
so.
I'm not sure if he was the principal when All Might was a student, or if he was a teacher, but
you have to expect it.
Yeah.
Like,
he's done this before.
When you work in education, you're going to expect kids to be kids and to push against the mold because they're little humans, and that is what humans do.
Yep. It's like, how much can I get away with?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Would you? I enjoyed the goodbye scene at the train station a lot.
Yeah.
That was fun. Like, they're still taking jabs at each other even as they're going their separate ways. Like, it's got to be weird for Akudori in particular, because, like, he just got his brother back, and now they've both got to deal with this potentially world-ending crisis.
Yep.
And they have to do it they have to each do it on their own ends.
Yep.
He's got to do it from behind the scenes. His brother's got to go to the front lines. He knows this, so they're trying to make the most of the time that they have together. And I thought it was fun the way that they managed to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's nice to have him out of the chair and
him out of the chair
functioning.
and Kurai's head out of his ass.
Yeah, no kidding. Anyway, yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah. What? Then we have Eri up to something at the end there, but I'm excited about that. And I think anybody who figures out what's happening there will also be excited. But
I'm excited too, because I genuinely don't remember.
You don't remember?
I don't, honey. I'm like chapters and chapters and chapters ahead. I don't remember what happens in this arc. Genuinely, I really don't. I'm so far beyond caring about this arc. I mean, I care about it. I'm sure as I re-experience it, I'm going to care about it. But I'm like, I've got like bombshells that drop way after this that I'm still reeling from. So that being said,
I get to
experience it like it's the first time with you guys. So let's have fun. Let's do it.
All right. Well, I hope you guys do have fun, and thanks again for sticking with us for so many podcasts. And I hope you guys have a plus ultra couple of weeks until the next one.
All right. See you later.
Bye.